So if you heard of the Startup Act program last year that was executed, can I see a show of hands? We should have more hands. I mean, we're in the tech space. Did we really not hear about that? Oh, okay, exactly, great. So Oswald Osaretin was the brain behind that, and he pushed for the execution of that Startup Act. Honestly, this profile is a lot. I could keep going on and on, but I think I want him to do justice to this profile himself. So please, without further ado, can we welcome Mr. Osaretin?
Please clap for success. Clap for success. You're welcome, sir. That's it.
Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you feeling?
Not bad.
How are you enjoying being here?
Fantastic. Hello, Akwa Ibom. Hello, Akwa Ibom.
Have they given, is this your first time in Akwa Ibom?
No. I think I've been in Akwa Ibom before, but I don't remember.
Okay, so by now you should have an Ibibio name.
Okay.
We'll get you one before the end of
Can I run for governor after I collect this?
Amazing. Okay, so please tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, everyone in this space has probably heard of Mr. Oswald, and there are some people here I know that actually said, after Mr. Oswald's session, I'm sneaking out. So people are here for you. So please tell us about yourself, how you're excited to be here, what you're looking forward to seeing, and even just from this session as well.
Okay, so as already said, my name is Oswald. I tend to refer to myself now as a digital evangelist. That's primarily because I believe digitizing Nigeria and Africa taking a position in the global economy is well within reach, and it's something we should focus on. So I've sort of taken that on as something that I'm very passionate about. What do I expect from this conference? I mean, part of being a digital evangelist is evangelizing. So I see coming to Uyo, coming to Akwa Ibom as part of that mission, and I'm happy to be here and I'm excited to see other digital technology enthusiasts.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so just talking about public sector innovation and all of that, I know that you have a wealth of experience with both sectors. So just wanted to just find out, what is your take on public sector and private sector, like the innovation space, and how do you feel like, oh, it's just a public sector thing in terms of innovation in the States? So if you're thinking smart city or digital economy generally, or do you think the onus falls most on the private sector? How do you think we can balance that out and bridge the gap where there's a gap?
Okay, that's a great question. I think I would say that one of the key issues, and I actually addressed this last night on the panel, is that it's a bit of apathy when it comes to dealing with government. I just recently finished what was a little bit under 3 years of what I call an education, right? I run a company in Nigeria for close to 2 decades, and it was once a startup, but as we know, Nigeria is quite difficult. You can stay a startup for 20 years.
Yes.
And you continue to feel like you are starting up over and over again within the definition of a startup. So I would say that I went into government because I was quite inquisitive. I said to myself, what are they doing there? You know, what's the thing that's happening there that makes my existence a bit difficult? And I'll tell you what I have learned from that experience is that it comes down to a simple word called collaboration. It's in the absence of collaboration that almost every issue that you can put your finger on when it comes to the issues we point at every day is birth. There's a lack of collaboration within the private sector. So within the private sector itself, there's a lack of collaboration. Within the public sector, there's a lack of collaboration. Between the private sector and the public sector, there's a lack of collaboration. So this leads to absolute disaster, right? And I think that when it comes to innovation, one of the key things you need is that word collaboration. We need public sector and private sector to have an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, right? We have a very great opportunity. And I tell this to anybody. You know, Nigeria, Africa, 200 million, 1.2 billion people. We have young people, some of them in this room, who are really intelligent and can be trained to do almost anything. We have a massive market, 200 million people, where you can actually test the ideas and sell to as your first market, right? And then we have unique problems, right? We have, you can never explain problems as saying amazing problems. We have what we can call amazing problems that digital technology can actually fix. So when you bring these three things together, somebody mentioned soups earlier, by the way. On the mention of soups, I'm already from Akwa Ibom. There's no need.
This is why we need to find your name.
Yes, food alone, and you got me. You had me at food. No, I'm a dough first, you know that. I can be Akwa Ibom second, start pitching, negotiate. So, so that pretty much is the ingredients for an amazing soup. And then policy is what is the final ingredient that makes that really taste well, right? Because we have a huge opportunity, but we have to get it right by first embracing government. I say that because the people who are really hungry for change are mostly non-government people. So it makes no sense that we are the ones saying, I'm going to go away from government. We should be trying to embrace government as much as we can. We should be looking at how we can, and this is interesting because I think this may be the first time I'm saying this. We should look how we should enable government. We normally say government should enable us. How do we enable government, right? So we have these appointments that have recently been made, very young people. So what's the excuse now, right? The new Minister of Communication, Digital Economy Innovation is 46 years old. He's a young man, In Nigerian definition of youth, he's a what?
He's a youth.
He's a youth.
Or a
He's a small youth.
He's a Gen Z.
Right? In most political parties, the person who heads youth is like 60. So he's a baby youth. Right? He's a baby youth. So the question now becomes, what is your part that you're going to play? Right? How do you support the new minister to ensure he's successful? Or should I say assure? To ensure he's successful. That's the question that we should be asking ourselves. How do we assist the new commissioner of ICT in your state to ensure he's successful? Right? Anybody who studies the Nigerian Startup Act will understand that it proves that government does listen. It was done in under a year. So the argument of government does not listen, they don't want to hear us, is debunked forever. It's about active citizen participation, right? And if I'm in a government setting, I will tell them the same thing from their perspective. But this is, they were private citizens here. We are the government, right? So if you want to take our place in a digital economy, which is rightfully ours and waiting for us, right? We need to ensure that we partner with government.
Okay, amazing. I really like that you mentioned partner with government because even as you're speaking, I'm sure some people are like, yeah, like they really want our help. So I don't know if you could give us like one or two practical steps on how to actually partner with the government and how to enable the government. Because like you said, governments, in some cases, government's actually waiting for people to be like, oh, hey, bring this solution and help. But in some cases, we know people that are here in the room that have actually taken forward-thinking proposals forward and they've gotten shut down or their proposals haven't even gotten looked at. So how can you give us some practical steps on actually how to enable the government and to partner with them?
So at the risk of losing friends, I can almost guarantee that 99% of those proposals you just mentioned are individualistic proposals as opposed to coordinated, collaborated proposals. As in, we, the people, want fiber. Not I, the person, want the fiber contract. Very different. So this example is actually interesting. I was watching Instagram this morning, and there was a mafia boss. And the mafia boss said, we control the American government. I have to listen to this. What does he mean, control the American government? He said, we own the union. He said the union has 2 million votes. So do we think that the politicians don't care about votes? They do. Regardless of how you want to mago the thing, you still need that base vote of 10 people, and then you can mago the other 90. But the 10 matter, right? In this last election, I think the 80 mattered. But I'll leave that alone. That's more politics.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
so the point is, examples as you asked. Nigerian Startup Act, we had students in front of the National Assembly with signs that said, we only support those that support us. Some of the sign says we only vote for those that vote for us, right? It was right before elections. What happened? We got a meeting with the assembly folks. Nigeria Startup Act was passed under a year. No issues in National Assembly. No request made in National Assembly. And if you understand what I mean by request, no requests made in the National Assembly, right? So, now, if you go in front of the National Assembly, and one of the first things you say is, "Hi, my name is Oswald. I work for the president, and I'm here on behalf of your children." How do you make a request after that? So type in on the computer. But if I came there and say, "Hi, my name is Oswald. I have one deal." There's no, I think somebody here mentioned the why. What's the story? Right? So we need to have a story of what we're trying to accomplish. This is a story. Africa's new tech destination. I understand it. Even being from Edo State, I'm like, interesting. We also want to be Africa's new, But there's enough. And that's the beauty about the Nigerian Startup Act state adoption, right? I've asked this question a few times, and I'll ask it here, and sometimes it flies over the head depending on how much you know America, you don't know America. But I'll ask it anyway, and you maybe Google it later. So you ask yourself, what's the difference between Silicon Valley, which is in California, Silicon Alley, which is in New York, San Antonio, which is in Texas, or Miami? It's not infrastructure, which we have a deficit here. It's not resources, because people can graduate in Harvard and move to Miami. So it's not because you can't find people to hire, which is also an issue here. It's policies, right? Policy is what makes Silicon Valley different from Silicon Alley. It's why Amazon put the office not in New York, but somewhere further down south, because the policies for down south was better. It's why Elon Musk said he's going to move his car business from California to Texas. So states have to compete on policies. It happens already, we just don't pay attention. What do you think Ogun State is doing to Lagos? If you are driving to Akwa and you turn left, all the companies there serve Lagos, but they live there in Ogun State, right? So why can't we do that on digital? Why can't we, all the fintechs, be in Uyo? But meanwhile, all the creative digital companies are in Edo State. Because the policies in Edo State and the natural skill sets. Exactly. So it doesn't have to be Lagos. I've had the why Lagos, that's why I'm on the board of Edo Innovates, right? That's why the very next step after Startup Act passing was, how do we now get states to adopt it? Because the country is big enough, right? The continent is big enough for this story to actually happen.
Thank you so much for that. I think that deserves a round of applause.
Apart from myself too.
Yes, please. Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that, because I was going to touch on a point on what you think about even the topic, like Akwa Ibom being the next tech destination, and even beyond Akwa Ibom, what you see in terms of the feasibility with other cities in Nigeria actually, playing in that role as well. So just like you mentioned, there's the Silicon Valley, there's San Antonio, there's Texas that are doing different things. It's just in Nigeria that when you hear tech, it's just like, oh, everyone is running to Lagos. Meanwhile, things are happening in other cities, but we're not getting to hear about these things. So how do you feel like we could push that more, even from, I know you're on the Edo State Tech Board, but from an Akwa Ibom perspective, since you're also one of us now, after eating our soup, please give us a few tips on how we can make that a reality.
You have to make this soup bar happen. Then I'll give you the blueprint. No, the truth matter is that it's a hidden secret. No, it's not. It's a not hidden secret.
Okay.
It's about policies, right? So Akwa Ibom needs to adopt Nigerian Startup Act, right? And we're not saying adopt it every line, just copy and paste. No, you need to adopt it for Akwa Ibom. As in, what is Akwa Ibom's strategy, right? To one, attract, right? So it's not just Akwa Ibom people that will want to be in Akwa Ibom. I mean, I landed yesterday and I was like, wow, this place is different. I immediately felt something. I liked it, right? So how are you going to hold me? Soups is the first step, right? So first, to attract. What is that policy to attract? And this is what I told my people in Edo State as well. How do you attract? Because maybe my idea is better in Kano. I'm not Edo State because I'm from Edo State. Maybe my idea is better in Kaduna or Akwa Ibom, right? Yeah. So how do you then make them thrive in your state? What are those policies one of the first ones is to attract them. Then how do you make them thrive in your state, right?
Yes.
And the last one is then how do you now sustain them, right? So when they're here, you attracted them, they came, now they're thriving. They may end up they have made the money, now they're in London. How do you now sustain them that they now stay in Akwa Ibom? That you now see another building like this with Money Point or whatever company saying their headquarters is in Akwa Ibom, right? So what are those sets of provisions that need to go to a document that achieves, that achieves that goal, right? Is what the Akwa Ibom Startup Act is, right? Because it's to make the environment, to enable the environment for startups to thrive in your state. So that's why it needs to be adopt as opposed to domesticate. I hear that word a lot, domesticate. No. Adopt, create your own that matches your state and matches what you're trying to achieve in your state.
And collaboration as well?
The collaboration is the secret ingredient.
Yes. No, I like that you touched on collaboration earlier. We had a panel yesterday that spoke on collaboration, and there were some amazing points that we brought up. And I'll pick on that just as I segue into the next thing I was going to ask. So I know you've transitioned a bit more into entrepreneurship now. Can you just walk us through that journey? We have quite a number of entrepreneurs in the room today. So can you walk us through that entrepreneurship journey and how you transitioned from the public space into the entrepreneurship space today, and how collaboration has helped you where you are today?
So something funny happens when you go into public sector. The minute you cross that imaginary line, it's like everything else you've done gets erased, and you're not a public sector person. So I moved to Nigeria, and this is no secret. I have a book on my story, so you can read it, my entrepreneurship story. In 2005, so I started a company in 2007, so that makes it about 16, 17 years old. So it's really a transition back into back to private sector, or maybe I never left because I think my activities within government were very entrepreneurial in approach and in execution, which is why more of us need to go into government, right? Because I think when you're an entrepreneur in a place like Nigeria, you become very, 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 very flexible, and you understand how to operate in a VUCA plus environment, and that itself is a skill. So I would say that it's been interesting. As some would know, I've launched an advisory firm, which is focused on advisory, policy development, and execution. It's called Digital, just without the L, basically. And we've also released a white paper on the digital environment with Nigeria in focus, called Beyond Transformation Towards Digital Revolution. So I advise everybody to download it. It's
really insightful.
Oh, you've done this already?
Yes,
Yeah.
already.
So it's a document that basically does some analysis on our environment and some of the opportunities that we have and an approach to digitizing Nigeria. So I would say that I'm just doing things as I've always done, right? You try to create value and hope that in the act of creating value, you're able to sustain yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So even in that journey of entrepreneurship, or like you said, back to entrepreneurship, and you mentioned collaboration as well earlier. I know one of the points that was mentioned at the panel yesterday was, if we're actually being very honest, one of the enemies of collaboration is pride. How do we really break that? And how can we get past that so that we can actually begin to see the transformation that we seek in our different industries?
Wow, pride. I never considered pride.
I actually thought about it yesterday when it was mentioned. I was like, that makes sense, because that's why one person's like, wait, at the verge of when CNN is about to interview me, you want me to partner, to now be two of us with CNN. No, it has to be me first. Wow. So we were all laughing about it where we were sitting, but we actually thought about it and we're like, actually, that's one of the enemies of collaboration, right?
I thought it was greed.
That too, actually.
Yeah. So
they are siblings. Someone said they are siblings.
They're both one of the seven. Pride, greed, gluttony. They all join. I would say this. I'll give this example, or I don't know if it's an example, but basically a theory of why we have a breakdown in the ecosystem and why collaboration is important. So, what founders want to do is they want to disrupt, right? So that's why everybody preaches, disrupt this, disrupt that, I've disrupted, disruptor. So great. In fact, t-shirt, disrupt. Right? I think it's not a magazine called Disrupt, sir. Right? So it's to disrupt. And that is fantastic, it's encouraged. 80%, 90% of the conversation we're having today is about how to encourage that disruption. Disrupt, and out of that should be a birth of something, right? So you disrupt, you change how it works, and then something new is born. Now, the issue is that there's a lot more value in some of that disruption. It happens in partnership, as in partner in your weakness, as opposed to only me, I'm going to disrupt. But you're missing the rest of the value that can happen if two of you do it together. Yes. So that goes back to the original thing I said, there's no collaboration within the ecosystem. Now, on the public sector side, the public sector does not see disruption, right? What the public sector sees is displacement, as in something has changed, right? So you are in Uyo, yeah, and you have done one app. Ooh, this app is so good. It changes how money moves, right? And you're excited, and you've launched it, and it's disrupting. You did it during COVID, and everybody's using it to move value to China, back from China, to America, back from America. Just you by yourself, in your room, right? With your internet. I'm not going to name any brands. But the guy in CBN does not see disruption. In fact, he does not even know about you. All he knows is that something has changed. Displacement. Something has gone wrong. The policymaker's job, number one job, is to protect what exists. That's what it's supposed to protect what exists and forward think to continue to protect what exists, right? What you are doing in your basement, or we don't have basements, in your house here in Ikot, is not what the policymaker was thinking as forward. Because you have disrupted, you have scattered the whole thing. You have brought a new thinking, right? The guy at this regulator just knows forward thinking is down this road. Right? He has not read that magazine you read, that fringe magazine that gave you the idea. He's just thinking, this thing will keep going this way. Let me just keep doing some forward policies to guard it. And then also, a regulator is meant to protect people, right? And the thing as it exists. So what he sees now is something has gone wrong. Displacement. Now, if you're the regulator, what would you do? Would you clap for the disruptor, or would you ban the disruptor?
I mean, based on what I've seen, they ban.
It's not based on what you've seen, it's what you should do, right?
It is in line with.
No, the regulator should ban. That's what the regulator should do. The regulator should ban. So maybe the regulator should first try to understand and then call you for a meeting. Now we're describing collaboration.
Yes.
So we're saying the lack of collaboration is the problem, right? So if, for instance, there was more of a discussion, an opportunity to have this continuous conversation, right? Then there'll be more of an understanding for the regulator to help you, and you help the regulator understand what you're trying to achieve. Because the change you're making may ultimately be better for the country, right? And the regulator should learn how to regulate and develop policies for what you're doing. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that one person is disrupting, the other person is seeing displacement, right? And then let me give you another example of, oh no, this is another example, it's actually what's happening, right? Of how bad it is. So I was in Abuja a while ago, and I had a talk with, and the crowd was full of founders, young people. And my question to them was, the person who writes the policy statement in the agency or the ministry, how old do you think they are? Do you think they're my age? I'm not going to tell you my age, right? I'm older than the minister, so that helps. They're not. They're young people. They're your university classmates. So you're not even drinking with them. So we won't tell them, look, I'm doing this thing. What do you think? So when they now write that first draft, you are considered in it. That's how bad our apathy is. Because it's not the director that wrote the document. It's not the DG. They don't write anything. They review and approve. They may give comments. In a 60-page policy document, you think they're going to read everything and say, aha. So who's really crafting policy? It's your classmate. So it doesn't make any sense. So having been on the private sector side and been on the public sector side, I'm like, it's like, what are we doing? right? We need to learn how to collaborate with each other. This apathy does not do us any good, right? We must have a collaborative nature where public sector and private sector, forward thinking, we work together. We walk and work together.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much for that. Please, can we? Okay, so we have a few minutes, so we'll just throw it open. We'll just take 2 questions from the audience, and we'll wrap up.
Gosh. And I didn't know you asked on WhatsApp. Hi, your guy. Please, those on the street. I know the hands I'm looking for. Those on the streets. I've seen 2. Annie, you are not on the street. You've moved to estate. C Street.
So you moved to the estate.
Yes. One woman next.
Can you please introduce yourself, tell us your name, what you do, and your question?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Ante Esang. I'm a front-end developer, engineer. I lead the front-end team at Sycamore.
Sorry, we can't really hear you.
I lead the front-end team at Sycamore. Sycamore is a fintech company in Lagos, and our specialty is give loans, get investment, stock options, and payment. So my question is, you spoke about people who write policies for government or officials that later implement these policies. So my question is, how do you, because I mean, we really don't know these people, and sometimes they might not even, okay, there was once I worked on Upwork, and I got like a job to write a document for someone, and I saw that this document was supposed to be like, was more like a confidential work, and it was supposed to like translate into policy making and all that. But at the end of the day, I wrote this without having too much context of what this was supposed to do, because I wasn't given that information. So collaborating with people who have access to this, how do we really go about this collaboration? Because sometimes they might not even know what they are doing, or explicitly what they are writing for, or who they are writing for, what they are doing, to be able to say, hey, I know a friend who wants to do something on this, and I think I should involve a friend, or we should talk about this, or we should find a way to like chip in our interest into this. So how do we get that collaboration done to make sure that, hey, we can influence the decisions that are being made? Thank you.
Okay, I think we should get the other one before. Okay. As a front end. Are you a back end?
I can take, yeah.
Let's just get
Good morning. Thank you for such an enlightening session. My name is Inemes Sit. I'm the CEO of the Legal Concierge. I'm a tech lawyer by training, and I am also a tech founder. Now, my question on collaboration is that in most of the conversations that include collaboration, you actually miss out the legal angle. So I hear you when you're talking about policies, but policy is B2G. Policy is really focusing between the governments and what they are doing to create an enabling environment for the entrepreneurs. When I was thinking about collaboration, I was really thinking about amongst the entrepreneurs. How do you get assured that your collaboration is going to be subsistent? How are you ensuring that whatever agreement you come in with today is going to last 2 years, 3 years? We hear of people who come in together, create a good idea, then there's a crime in one of the states where there's a quarrel. Once there's a quarrel, it becomes a problem. So at what point are you advising for people who are interested to get into collaboration to talk to their lawyers, and how are you expecting them to do that? Thank you.
Okay. Sir, the question is for you, sir. How to call the lawyer?
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's done.
All right. So both questions were about collaboration.
Yes.
So let me something about the Nigerian Startup Act as an example. So the Nigerian Startup Act was done on something we call the big tent approach. Now, the reason why it became a big tent as opposed to my tent, down here, let's do this thing, right? But it became a big tent because we took the approach that anybody, I took, the approach that anybody who has ever said anything, startup, they were sleeping, and they said startup act, or we should do a startup act. But it never went anywhere, will be part of this process, right? So there were several other entities, NESG, a number of other people who were either had a grouping where they had been discussing it 1 year, 2 years, but it wasn't going anywhere, just ongoing. So we brought them into the tent. And we also made it known that anybody who wanted to participate, right? Example of anybody, I mean, I was on Instagram one day, I saw a guy, he sent me a video. What was the video? He was just on TV, and he talked about the act, and he said he would like to help. Within a couple of, maybe a week, he was already inside the act that not everybody was already participating. So it wasn't gated. It's just a matter of you stepping up and saying you wanted to participate. So in the act itself, because the act was done in a collaborative way, developing the act was a collaborative process. What's really, really strong in the act is the desire to be collaborative, right? So I rephrase that. It's not a desire. It's more of it is a collaborative framework within the act. So if anybody reads the act, one thing you will notice is that the first thing it talks about is a council. Now, in this council is senior members of government. President, vice president, some ministers are in the council. But what's more important to note is that there's an 8-to-6 breakup between public sector and private sector. So you have actual private sector people who are supposed to represent something called the consultative forum, right? So that's up here, that's this layer. So on this layer, I wish I had a board. On this layer, you have Mr. President sitting there, you have members of the private sector sitting there, and you have members of government. Where you can only imagine that they can discuss things about this sector, and then the president may approve or not approve, but it expedites governance as it relates to this sector. And that was intentional, right? Deliberate and intentional. Then you come a step down. You now have a consultative forum, right, which is supposed to be made up of everybody here. You're all supposed to be members of the consultative forum, right? And the consultative forum is supposed to engage a government agency that is sitting in front of other government agencies that offer services to this sector. And there again is another collaborative conversation where we are saying this is our issue, and this is the issue we want to take up to the council, right? So that's an example of creating a framework that can help drive collaboration, so institutionalizing collaboration. So what has happened in a year? There's no consultative forum. Granted, government has not done the implementation of their side, but the private sector has also not gotten together and say, in that act, where we are beneficiaries, right? Let us form what the act described will help us in the act. Let's not say, when government is ready, let's say, hey, here we are, 10 million Nigerians, by the Constitutional Forum. It does not exist, right? Members of the private sector have been elected into representation in the council. So that aspect has been done. So that's why we say the act is maybe 3%, under 5% implemented, right? But I always expected that, maybe this was my blind side, that when you do read the act and say, wait, this document is meant to enable me, that you would agitate, and I mean that in the softest sense, to say, where are we? I'm a benefactor of this thing, why does it not exist? Right? That is the starting point for collaboration, because that means that the minute that 5, 10, 6, 20 of you are now together saying, where is this thing? You are now collaborating within the private sector side. Right? And that does not take a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer. There's no IP being shared. is agitation for what benefits all of us. It does not give anybody any additional pathway to anything. You still have to do your work. It just makes it easier for everybody. That's what the act intends to do. So where is that agitation? Where is that drive to say, okay, this is something that benefits everybody? How do we push it? So we don't need lawyers, right? We just need to say, the same way we all gathered in this room, we need to say, okay, the next step we're going to do when we leave this room is agitate for the Startup Act for Akwa Ibom. Why? We don't care what the rest of Nigeria does. You should. But we want that Akwa Ibom to be the second state that has a Startup Act. And we're going to implement it, and we're going to use it. Right? That's the only way you get to this vision. That's the story. That's the starting of the story that leads you to this vision that you have on the wall. Kaduna has passed theirs, and then the process of implementing. Right? So, the first question that was asked is something that happens when you're already collaborating. Right? If government knows that there's 2,000 Ibomites when it comes to technology that they must always talk to, and every year they gather in this fine hotel. I hope you guys invite me next year. Right? They will take notes. They will be here. They will involve you in the policy discussion that they're creating. Policy discussions won't happen on the sideline. It won't be imposed on you. You'll be part of it because you are 2,000, 3,000 people who are focused on policies that benefit all 3,000 people. That's the difference. Right? So it's really about collaboration within the ecosystem, which really means collaboration within the private sector, collaboration within the public sector, and collaboration between the public sector and private sector, because both of them, God knows when, right? But no, right? So it's about how those two entities collaborate, and what is the part that you play in ensuring that happens, because I'm sure the governor's nephew is here, right? So if we all want to do good, we all need to collaborate to ensure that we are ensuring that policies benefit the all.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope your questions were answered. So thank you so much. This has brought us to the end of our Fireside Chat. We really, really appreciate you taking time out to come to Akwa Ibom, and we hope that you get to check all the soups that you want to eat before you leave. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Please hold on, sir. Just hold on for the photograph, sir, please. Please excuse your water, too. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Former Senior Special Assistant to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. By the grace of God, sir, I'm the Special Assistant to my local government chairman's PA, sir. I'm coming up. The PA to my local government chairman called me to give me an appointment. I said, you where they collect 80,000.